Still working at Miller's garage, Maddie? The question, dripping with condescension from my father, echoed across Isabel's perfectly manicured garden. My stomach dropped. Sunlight glinted off champagne flutes, reflecting the golden glow of Seattle's elite celebrating my sister's engagement. A string quartet warbled a cheerful tune, each note a tiny hammer blow to my carefully constructed composure. I swallowed, the bitter taste of humiliation rising in my throat. Inside, I was screaming. Outside, I remained composed. My hands trembled, but I shoved them deep into the pockets of my dress. My phone vibrated, another pat approved. Ever felt invisible? Subscribe now for the ultimate underdog story, where a lifetime of being overshadowed ignites the most satisfying revenge you've ever witnessed. 1993. Isabel's 10th birthday. The memory surfaced unbidden, a sharp pang of familiar injustice. While Isabel received a gleaming, advanced chemistry, set the kind that required adult supervision, and came with a safety manual thicker than a novel, I was gifted a set of watercolor paints. A nice, quiet hobby for a girl, my mother had chirped, oblivious to the fire that burned within me, a hunger for creation beyond simple landscapes. The metallic tang of the chemistry set, the scent of promise and intellectual rigor, contrasted sharply with the cloying, fruity smell of the watercolor palette. The subtle hierarchy became blatant. Isabel's a scientist, my father would declare, his voice booming with pride, Maddie's creative. The unspoken implication hung heavy. Science mattered, art was frivolous. My scholarships to design school were never accepted, the forms seemingly lost in the mail. My father later attributed it to clerical errors. While Isabel's tuition was covered, every penny of my hard-earned savings from after-school jobs seemed to vanish into thin air. "We needed to fix the car, dear," my mother explained, her voice a practiced blend of apology and justification. College graduation, 2009. Isabel, draped in her doctor's white coat, beamed under the flash of cameras. I stood to the side, a quiet observer. My father, his arm around Isabel, declared, "She's going to save lives." The comment felt like a physical blow. It was not what he said, but what he did not say. My accomplishments, the consulting projects that had funded my existence, were deemed unimportant. That day I resolved to build something they couldn't ignore, something that screamed my name into the world, and I would make it happen without their help. The weight of years of dismissal pressed down. A decision crystallized within me. No more hiding, no more silence, no more playing small. "It's not just a garage, Dad," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "It's Miller Propulsion Systems. We design cutting-edge propulsion systems for electric vehicles." A flicker of confusion crossed his face, quickly replaced by a dismissive wave of his hand. "Electric vehicles, those toys, Isabel saves lives, you tinker." The air thickened with unspoken judgments. Every word was like a carefully placed brick in the wall they had built between us. I pressed on, fueled by a lifetime of suppressed anger. "We hold 4 patents. Our clients include Greenleaf Motors and Solar Wind Energy. We're revolutionizing sustainable transport." The names hung in the air, industry giants that even they had to recognize. My heart pounded against my ribs, a drumbeat of defiance. His eyes narrowed. "Patents, Greenleaf, you expect us to believe," he sputtered, searching for a way to invalidate my words. My mother, ever the pragmatist, chimed in, "Maddie, darling, are you sure you're not being exaggerated? Those companies are very serious." The engagement party faded into background noise. The carefully constructed facade of my life shattered. I stared at them, the years of unspoken resentment bubbling to the surface. No exaggeration, no lies, no more pretending. The truth hung heavy between us, a chasm of disbelief and thinly veiled disdain. Later, Isabel cornered me, a hesitant apology in her eyes. "Maddie," she said softly, I didn't know. But the damage was done. The years of being unseen, unheard, undervalued could not be undone with a few whispered words. Their apologies felt hollow, their sudden interest opportunistic. Their world was one of appearances, and I had finally crashed the party. Weeks later, a summons arrived, my grandmother's 90th birthday. The invitation, embossed with the family crest, felt like a command. This was non-negotiable. Strategically, I'd spent the time since the engagement party quietly consolidating my gains. Secured a major contract with Tesla, announced an expansion, and subtly leaked details of my company's valuation. They would be ready. The grand ballroom buzzed with hushed conversations and the clinking of silverware. Crystal chandeliers cast shimmering light on the impeccably dressed guests, a sea of familiar faces. My parents greeted me with forced smiles, their eyes darting nervously around the room. Status indicators flashed everywhere: designer dresses, expensive watches, the subtle sheen of wealth. Grandma, perched on a velvet throne, beckoned me closer. Her eyes, though aged, held a spark of the old fire. "Madeline," she rasped, her voice surprisingly strong, "I hear you've been busy." A subtle smile played on her lips. "Tell me everything." The room seemed to hold its breath. My family, oblivious to the subtle shift, continued their polite chatter, their world about to tilt on its axis. I took a deep breath, ready to rewrite the narrative. "Busy is an understatement, Grandma." I met her gaze, a lifetime of resentment replaced by a quiet confidence. The moment had arrived. My words cut through the polite hum like a laser. Silence descended, heavy and expectant. My father visibly stiffened. My mother's smile faltered. "Miller Propulsion Systems was just acquired," I announced, my voice clear and resonant, "by Stark Industries." A collective gasp rippled through the ballroom. Heads turned. Conversation died. Stark Industries. The name alone held power, a symbol of innovation and limitless wealth. My mother's face paled. "Stark as in the Stark Industries," my father gaped, his carefully constructed composure crumbling. "Impossible. The deal closed this morning," I continued, unfazed by their disbelief. "Valued at $2.8 billion. The number hung in the air, a concrete testament to my success. A low murmur spread through the room, punctuated by the occasional choked cough. Isabel's fiancé, the esteemed Dr. Harrison, choked on his champagne. Grandma squeezed my hand, a knowing gleam in her eyes. "And your role, Madeline?" "Founder and CEO," I stated. "I'll remain on the board as Chief Innovation Officer." The silence stretched, broken only by the faint hum of the air conditioning. The change in the room was palpable. Disbelief gave way to shock, shock to a grudging respect. My father's jaw worked silently. My mother dabbed at her eyes with a silk handkerchief. Aunt Carol fainted. The power dynamic had irrevocably shifted. "Maddie, darling," my mother began, her voice saccharine sweet, "this is wonderful, we always knew you had potential." I arched an eyebrow, a silent challenge. "You laughed then, you're not laughing now." "Did you, mother?" My father, recovering slightly, interjected, "This is remarkable, Madeline, we are so proud." He moved closer, his hand reaching for my arm. "Perhaps you could advise Isabel, she's always looking for investment opportunities." "Here it comes," my inner self scoffed. "My consulting fees are rather steep, father." "Family discount, of course." His smile didn't quite reach his eyes. "And that foundation we've been planning. Your expertise would be invaluable." I paused, letting the silence amplify their desperation. "I'll consider it." The non-committal response hung in the air, a stark contrast to my past eagerness to please. Isabel approached tentatively. "Maddie, I want to understand, really understand." "Start by acknowledging the truth, Isabel." I kept my voice even. "That might be a good beginning." My father, sensing his control slipping, tried a different tactic. "This changes things, Maddie. We need to update the will, ensure everything is fair." Fair, now, a wave of bitterness threatened to overwhelm me, but I pushed it down. Emotional control was my weapon. "That's a matter for the lawyers, father." Before he could respond, I turned my attention back to Grandma. "Ready for that cake, Grandma." My one-liner, a casual dismissal cloaked in familial concern, effectively ended the conversation. The message was clear. I was in charge now, and their attempts at manipulation were transparent. The sweet taste of revenge had never been so satisfying. The cake was wheeled in, a towering confection of sugar and cream, its tiers reflecting the shimmering chandeliers. A distraction, but a welcome one. As the room erupted in a chorus of happy birthday, I leaned in close to my grandmother. "There's one more thing, Grandma," I murmured, my voice barely audible above the singing. "About Stark Industries." Her eyes twinkled with anticipation. "Tell me, dear." I paused for dramatic effect, letting the suspense build. As part of the acquisition, Stark acquired not just Miller Propulsion's assets, but also its debts and liabilities. I watched her carefully, gauging her reaction. She remained impassive, her face an unreadable mask. "And, remember the family trust, Grandma?" I asked softly. "The one that holds the controlling interest in the hospital where Isabel works, the hospital. St. Jude S." Founded by my great-grandfather, it was the family's pride and joy, their contribution to the community, and Isabel's professional home. It was also heavily leveraged. My parents depended on its continued financial success to maintain their lifestyle and their social standing. Her eyes narrowed slightly, a flicker of understanding dawning within them. Go on. Turns out, I continued, my voice a calm counterpoint to the rising tension in my chest, Miller Propulsion held a significant portion of St. Jude's debt that Stark Industries now owns. The revelation hit her like a physical blow. Her grip on my hand tightened, her knuckles turning white. What are you saying? I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the fallout. Stark Industries, by extension I, now effectively control the majority stake of St. Jude's Hospital. The color drained from her face. She whispered, "The hospital, you control the hospital." The song ended abruptly, leaving a vacuum of silence in its wake. Every eye was on us. The air crackled with unspoken questions. My mother, sensing something amiss, rushed to my grandmother's side. "Mother, are you all right?" Grandma waved her away, her gaze fixed on me. "Madeline," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "What have you done?" The moment had arrived. The final, devastating blow. I met my grandmother's gaze, my heart pounding in my chest. I said calmly, factually, "I protected myself." Isabel now stood beside my mother, her face a mask of confusion and fear. "Maddie, what's going on?" I turned to her. "Your job, Isabel, your career, your reputation, your hospital's future." I paused, letting the weight of my words sink in. "They are all now indirectly in my hands." My father, his face flushed crimson, strode towards me, his fists clenched. "You wouldn't dare." I raised an eyebrow, a silent challenge. "Wouldn't I?" He stopped short, his bravado deflating like a punctured balloon. The realization washed over him. I held all the cards. The hospital, the family legacy, Isabel's career, all collateral damage in my carefully orchestrated game. My grandmother finally broke the silence. "Enough," she commanded, her voice regaining its strength. "Let's have some cake." The party resumed, but the atmosphere had irrevocably changed. The laughter was forced, the conversation strained. The family, once united in their condescension, were now divided by suspicion and fear. And I, the quiet, unassuming barista, stood at the center of it all, the architect of their downfall. Time blurred. Months drifted by. The initial fury of my family cooled into a simmer of resentment. Their attempts to reconnect became strategic, each carefully crafted phone call, each insincere invitation laced with an underlying motive, control. I met them on my terms, offering polite but firm refusals. Isabel, however, proved different. She genuinely sought understanding, a path toward something resembling sisterhood. The transformation in my life was stark. The cramped apartment was replaced by a modern loft overlooking Puget Sound. The constant anxiety of financial insecurity was gone, replaced by the quiet confidence of self-made success. My relationship with my fiancé bloomed, nurtured by mutual respect and genuine affection. I was free. Looking back, the sweetest revenge was less about external validation and more about internal liberation. It was about finally shedding the weight of their expectations and embracing my true self. It wasn't about proving them wrong, but proving myself right. It was about building a life based on authentic values, not on the approval of others. In the end, the greatest power comes not from controlling others, but from owning your own worth. If you've ever felt unseen, remember Maddie's story. What success could you build? Share if you're ready to ditch revenge for a life that truly wins. True power, living your truth.